And welcome into the Oklahoman's video studio. I'm Dave Morris, once again joined by Oklahoma City's Public Schools Superintendent Sean McDaniel. It's great to see you again, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Last time we had you seated here, I think you were just getting started, and now you're 4 or 5 months / 10 years into the job. How's it going?
It depends on the day. It's going really, really well. I'm having a great time getting to know my team and the district, and love talking about the successes and the challenges, and just really having a lot of fun right now.
Very cool. Came from the Mustang District over to Oklahoma City District, so this is kind of your first school year as the superintendent. Family doing okay?
Family is great. You know, they're putting up with me and you know, kind of getting acclimated to the new job right along with me.
Well, that's an important point too, because this is not only a full-time job, it's a lot of responsibility, a lot of hours type job.
It is, but they have been riding along with me for a long time, and they know the deal, and so we've kind of taken on the philosophy that it's all about quality time, because they know they're not going to get a quantity from me, so we're doing great.
Very cool. As we have this conversation, I look outside, I see the holiday decorations across the street. On the Devon properties, it's cold out there.
It is freezing outside.
Let me ask you this about what does it take to trigger a cold weather day, a snow day, an ice day for the students to not stay, or the students to not go to school?
Sure, that's a great question. It's a multi-step process. So as soon as we start getting a feel for a forecast, we hear that it's going to be cold or weather is developing, we have lots of different eyes on that forecast. We then, as often as we can, we like to make the decision the night before, because we know that gives parents an opportunity to plan, but sometimes that's not possible. So we have people in all areas of the city who are up at 3:30 in the morning the day of, and they're driving, checking road conditions, reporting back to kind of Central Command, which is our Chief Operating Officer, Scott Randall. I'm up, and he will call me with updates, recommendations, and then we try and make the call as early as possible. So it's about roads, but it's also about a combination of roads and weather. So, you know, obviously today it's cold, and so we think about kids who have to stand out at bus stops. We think about kids who may or may not have layers of clothes on. So it's a combination of those two. Very rarely would we make a decision to close school based upon the temperature alone. But when you combine tough roads with low temperature, then you're more likely to close because of the combination of the two. Because we know roads sometimes slow buses down, and so kids might have to stand outside longer. So that is balanced with all that we know they're going to get at school. They're going to get warmth, they're going to get food, and they're going to be taken care of at school. So it's a tricky decision, but we have lots of different eyes on it from the first forecast until the final decision is made.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that.
There's a lot that goes into it, right.
One of the things you've been doing over the past few months, and one of the things you outlined when you were here last, was this plan, which has since been unveiled as titled Pathway to Greatness.
Right.
And you've been having public meetings, 4 or 5 of them, I believe, so far?
5 nights so far. So we started last Monday, and we concluded our first round of meetings last night at Douglas High School.
Who all has attended? Have they been well attended?
You know, it's been hit and miss. We've probably had a total in the 5 meetings of 800-ish, I would guess, maybe a little short of that. And so what we're getting is great feedback. You know, I understand the skepticism right now, because we have, as a district, unveiled different variations of plans to close schools over the years. And so people are skeptical, they're concerned, they want to know how this is going to impact them, their families. Teachers are listening intently. And so I'm really pleased with the feedback we're getting. It's been a tough go, to be quite honest with you, because there's a lot of passion and emotion.
You had to have anticipated that, right?
We did. And so what I've got to do a really good job of, along with our team, is listening to what our folks are saying. And I can't get sidetracked with the emotion of it. And I value the emotion, but I can't listen only to the emotion. I have to hear what they're saying. What are their real concerns? And we take that into account as we're making decisions about what our district is going to look like next year.
Let's talk about those concerns. I'm guessing parents' concerns may be a little bit different than teachers and principals. Teachers and principals perhaps are concerned with employment.
Sure.
Parents perhaps are concerned about class size and location of schools. I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
No. I think you've hit it. Certainly our teachers are wondering, number one, am I going to be employed? Number two, if so, where? Principals even to a greater scale, because if you think about moving kids from one school to another school, for example, teachers have to follow kids. Those kids still need teachers, so it may be a location change. Whereas if you are going to close schools and have a fewer number in a subsequent year, that means you're going to have a fewer number of head principals. And so principals are probably the most anxious bunch through this process, probably a second to parents. And so our commitment has been that if you're doing a good job for our district, we want to protect your employment. It may look different, but we want to protect your employment. From a parent standpoint, they're really interested in what are we going to get out of this? I mean, you're going to make our lives tough because our kids are going to this school, we like this school, and you're suggesting that we may not be able to go to this school next year. So what are we going to get in return? And this is where we get into the conversation about trade-ups. What are the things that we need to offer our kids? What are the opportunities they need that they're not getting right now? We know over the years, due to budget cuts, we have cut music classes, we have cut art classes, we don't have full-time counselors in many of our schools. After school programming is good in some areas, but not in all areas. So we want to bring those things back so that our kids have opportunities at the end of this journey that they do not have right now. And that's one of the big questions that I think a lot of people have is, what are we getting out of this?
What led to this? What are some of the concerns that led to Pathway to Greatness? I see the district operating at 60% of capacity and $11 million in cuts to state aid over the next 2 years.
Sure, I think that's a piece of it. The bigger reason why is because we see across the district our kids are not getting opportunities that we believe they deserve. Depending on what has happened at a particular school in a particular area in our community, we have taken opportunities away from our kids. So it could be anything from AP courses that are not offered in our high schools, to pre-AP courses, to after-school programming, clubs, the fine arts. Many kids do not have opportunities at access, and so one of the things that we'll get from a consolidation is we'll be able to bring some of those things back. And we think we'll be able to do it in short order. This is not a 5-year out deal. We think that in year one, we'll be able to restore some of the things that our kids have lost. A byproduct, and certainly a reason that we have to think about, is the efficiency. If I'm operating at 60% capacity, I know that I am probably spending a lot of money on HVAC, heat and air, operating a building that may be 30% full. And so we're pitching money out the window that we could be taking and reinvesting back into our kids. And so that's a reason. It's not the primary reason, but it's certainly something that we're considering, is how to be more efficient and reinvest in our kids.
So inefficiency could be 60% capacity, yet you have large class sizes elsewhere.
Sure. So yeah, and if you go south of I-40, you will see schools that are not at 60% capacity. They're at 90%, 95%. They're busting at the seams. And so that's a great point. This pathway to greatness is not all about closing schools, and I think that message that we're looking at other options gets lost a little bit because of the fear of closing schools. And so whatever the need is, we need to respond to the need. So if there are areas where we're busting at the seams, we need to be problem solvers there. We need to think about a bond election. We need to think about how do we take the pressure off those schools and lower class sizes and lower school sizes so our kids can learn at higher levels and achieve at higher levels. So it's a very complex process for sure.
People perhaps just browsing on Facebook looking at this, Sean just wants to close schools. Are you going to close schools? Is that among the things on table, but just for that 30,000-foot casual?
Sure. There is not a plan out there that would suggest to us we don't need to close schools. I think closing schools is going to be inevitable. What we do not know, because we're not at the end of the process yet, is which schools, where are they located, what are our new boundary lines going to look like, what are the exact trade-ups by school that we're going to be able to bring back to our kids and families. But what I've told each group at each community meeting is, before we start, there are a couple givens. One given is that we are going to have to close schools. That is a given. We just don't know where those schools are located at this time. There is not a list that I have in my back pocket that has, here are the schools that we're going to close.
I'm guessing you've been accused of having a list, though.
I don't know.
Accused may be a strong word. Suggested you had a list.
Sure, because lists have appeared before in this district, and schools have found themselves on lists before over the years, and so they're drawing conclusions now that we're just going to reappear on the list. And what I am trying to convince folks of is that this process will determine what schools are going to be closed, consolidated, repurposed, where we're going to add maybe a classroom wing or a new school. We're going to respond to the needs based upon this process.
All right, so let's talk more about the process. You've,
okay.
you've had your meetings, you've heard a few things. What happens next? And then this, as I understand it, is not the last public meeting.
That's correct. And so first round meeting was last night. And so we go into a continuation of gathering data. So we have a firm called ADG, and they're a partner with us. We've hired them to come in and do data analysis on every school. So based on a board policy D12 that outlines 9 criteria that we use to evaluate our schools, ADG comes into every school and they begin collecting data. Things like proximity, how many similar schools are within a 2-mile radius. We look at safety, how many, through law enforcement records, how many citations have been issued, how many disciplinary referrals, what are the demographics, what are the trends with reading and math scores over time. So lots of different criteria that we gather. The community input piece is a critical part to this process. We cannot get the right answer here without what we're hearing from our community. We're hearing in the public meetings. We have had a survey open. We've taken over 2,200 responses in the first week of the survey, including dozens of open-ended questions where they, have you thought about this? What about this? Here's a suggestion. Here's a concern. And then the third leg of that stool is just the collective experience that our school leaders have over the years. Here are lessons learned. Here are things that we need to consider. So it's the data piece, it's the community input, and it's the experience of our school leaders and teachers who have opportunity to provide input. So we're gathering that now. In January, third week of January, we will narrow down to 3 proposals that we will take back out to community meetings, and we'll make the tour again. And we'll put the 3 proposals up on the screen and let them look at it, and then they'll weigh in again. We'll have another full round of input. And I'm sure we'll get lots of input that we need. We will narrow down to 1 proposal, and in February we'll take that 1 proposal to the board for review. They will not vote in February. They'll come back 1 month later at the March 4th meeting, and they'll vote on the recommendation that I present for that 1 proposal. That's in a nutshell.
Seems like a pretty exhaustive process, but it also seems like you've tried to get, at least from the optics of it, some community input right from the beginning versus, hey, we've already got a plan, what do you think of our plan?
I think that was a critical move in this process. Is many times, and I don't know much about how we have done it in this district, but I know many times we make the mistake of presenting the plan, and here's our decision, now tell us what you think. We were very intentional about involving our community in this conversation very, very early on. From informal meetings I've conducted, lost count, but somewhere between 30 and 40 informal meetings from the time I stepped foot into the district up until the formal meeting. So we're gathering input, we're pitching ideas. We want to know what our public thinks, and I think that was a critical piece of the process, is to involve them early on and let them be involved in the conversation throughout.
My guess is hearing some of that feedback, whether it was directly with this plan or not is probably pretty invaluable for you to kind of get a read on the community.
It absolutely is, because we're hearing from lots of different folks in lots of different areas of the city who have different perspectives, different needs, and so it's a very well-rounded input process. It's not everybody saying the same thing. We're hearing things that we have not spent enough time considering. And so as we hear these themes pop up through our input process, we then go back as a team and say, hey, we haven't spent enough time talking about X, Y, and Z, so let's put it on the table and let's talk some more about it. And that will ultimately influence our decision making.
Is there a mechanism in place where people can still submit input, feedback, whether it's for this plan or just, hey, I want to throw this out there?
Sure. On our website, we've taken down our first survey. We want to collect that, we want to measure it out, and then we'll narrow down and kick another survey out later. But right now you can go to our website and there's a comments box that you can click at any time that's always there and provide us comments. I've also extended the invitation. Anybody that wants to meet with me individually in a small group, come to me, I'll come to you. I have spent time in living rooms, at HOA meetings, at ballparks. I want to meet with people. I want to hear what people have to say. And so that invitation is out there. That's another way that you can provide input. And so would love to continue hearing from our community.
Perhaps if you just want Sean McDaniel to show up at a holiday party you're hosting, there you go.
Yeah, I'm there.
As we have this conversation, it's Tuesday, November 13th. Switching gears, one final topic here. Clara Luper, you guys are the new admin building, potentially renamed in honor of Clara Luper.
Right. We're so excited about this this opportunity. So tonight at our regularly scheduled board meeting, there's an action item that will forever and ever rename or name our new admin building the Clara Luper Educational Services Center. We had a chance a couple weeks ago to meet with Mrs. Luper's family, one of her daughters, and friends, and pitched this to them, showed them some images of some renderings of what it might look like, and they were equally excited, and so we're able to present that to our board tonight. We expect the family to be in attendance, and then we're going to have a reception to follow. But you know, I don't need to be the one to say, but I'm going to, all that Clara Luper has meant to not just the school district or the state, but really internationally, the things that she did that really meant a lot to our kids now and really forever. She was a trailblazer, and so we're really, really grateful for this opportunity.
Brave lady for sure. He's Sean McDaniel. He's Oklahoma City Public Schools Superintendent. You can find more coverage, including what kind of led up to the whole Pathway to Greatness project. Our Tim Willard, my colleague in the Oklahoman's newsroom, covers education in public schools. Be sure to follow him on Twitter, and all of his great coverage in the Oklahoman online at newsok.com. Thanks to Beth for her help as well. Sean, great to see you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.